Molly Terry, here representing herself to speak against the bill.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Molly.
I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Molly Terry. I am representing myself, and I am opposed to House Bill 16. It is important that these intensely personal and private medical decisions be left in the hands of women past 20 weeks, particularly because of the 18 to 20-week ultrasound scans. Often during these scans, women find out for the first time there is something wrong with the fetus because it has grown large enough to detect abnormalities. And I would like to address the substitute in this bill. The substitute allows fetal abnormalities that, within a physician's reasonable medical judgment, will result in the death of an infant not later than minutes to hours after the birth, regardless of the provision of life-saving medical treatment. This is a very slim exemption, and it by no means covers all fetal abnormalities. According to Insider Radiology, 1 to 2% of all 18 to 20-week scans will detect a major structural abnormality. This would be 1 to 2 out of every 100 Texas pregnancies. Furthermore, it is estimated that between 80 to 95% of parents who get abnormal scans choose to terminate. HB 16 has very limited exceptions for specific fetal abnormalities and would force a number of Texas women to carry pregnancies against their wishes. Life is not only measured by the number of breaths taken, but is also the quality of those breaths. I would also like to bring up that in states where these bills have already passed, there have begun to be other consequences that have nothing to do with abnormalities. For example, Danielle and Rob Deaver of Nebraska were denied an abortion after Danielle's amniotic fluid drained at 22 weeks. She was denied an abortion, and for a week her uterus crushed the fetus that her and her husband very desperately wanted. Danielle succumbed to infection and pain until finally she delivered naturally and watched her tiny daughter gasp for breath until she died 15 minutes later. I am personally disturbed by this bill because me and my husband plan to start having children this year. Please do not pass a bill that will make me have to leave Texas if I find out something is wrong with my pregnancy. This bill will hurt Texas women, and I believe this state is far too compassionate to do that to its families and to its women. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabine Berghammer, I have you testifying for yourself against the bill, and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair and Committee, for allowing me to testify. My name is Sabina Berghammer, and I am a constituent of Elliott Neustadt and a registered nurse. I'm here to testify against these bills because they hurt Texas women.
And this bill, this needs to be again regarding House Bill 16.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
As someone who has worked at an abortion clinic and community clinic for over 7 years, volunteered for the Lilith Fund for over 8, and as a registered nurse, I can speak to the fact that women need access to abortion services, period. Over the course of my work and volunteer experience, I have heard thousands of women recount their stories, their aspirations, and their unique reasons for choosing to terminate a pregnancy. I have come to understand that this decision is highly personal and reproductive freedom is a matter of justice. I have watched this state, my state, chip away at access to abortion services over the last 10 years while I've been working in this service, strip away funding for family planning, and fund crisis pregnancy centers, which are as qualified to talk to women about pregnancy options as a fortune teller with a crystal ball. With all of these restrictions, the number of women who need and seek out abortion services has not fallen, but the level of desperation has definitely risen. The truth is that restricting access does not ensure that less women have abortions, but it does ensure that more women take dangerous risks to take control over their own lives. You may be convinced that this is a political issue, but it is first and foremost a personal issue, not just in the factors that play into if and when a woman has an abortion, but in the fact that the need for abortion services transcends political, religious, racial, and economic lines. The women who need abortions are not on the fringes, but they are every woman. I have held the hands of women of every political and religious affiliation, rich and poor, through this difficult decision, and I have supported and trusted her to make the right decision for her own life, whether it was to keep or terminate a pregnancy. You undoubtedly know and love women in your own life who have had an abortion. Your friends, sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives have faced this decision before, and just as they have every right to reproductive autonomy and self-determination, so do the rest of the women in Texas. What has proven to work in lowering the number of unwanted pregnancies is access to birth control, including abortion, comprehensive health care coverage, and sex education. I plead with you to focus your energies on these efforts. Thank you.
Your testimony. Catherine Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Catherine, have you, let's see. Representing yourself and against the bill.
Yes, that is correct. My name is Catherine Hildebrandt. I'm here representing myself. I'm against this bill. I'm in Representative Alvarado's district in Houston, where I came from this afternoon. I am here for myself, but in my professional life, I'm a domestic and sexual violence advocate, and that's what I would like to briefly speak to give you guys some of the research and statistic on domestic violence and what unwanted pregnancy looks like in those situations. One of the things we know about domestic violence is that, unfortunately, it affects a huge number of women. 1 in 3 women, and actually a little higher than that in Texas, report violence from a partner in their lifetime, and that's just physical or sexual violence from a partner. So we know this is very widespread. Another thing we know about domestic violence is that women in these situations have high levels of reproductive coercion, and what that means is that somebody has forced them to become pregnant or has tried to force them to become pregnant. Pregnancy is a really good way to keep a woman in an abusive situation, and so men will often do things like destroy their birth control or use threats or acts of violence to force them to become pregnant, or use threats of violence once they become pregnant to prevent them from getting an abortion. One study that recently came out showed that of women in healthy relationships who get pregnant, about 8% of them say that their pregnancy was unwanted. Of women in abusive relationships who get pregnant, more than 40% of them say that their pregnancy was unwanted and that they would prefer to not be pregnant. So the women that you're hurting when you're having this ban are really going to be abused women, women who are already in desperate situations. And this bill is specifically about fetal pain and the research around there. Another thing we know about children born into situations of domestic violence is that men who abuse their wives abuse their children about 50% of the time. And so you're really not preventing pain. You're just going to prolong the pain of that child's life. That child is very likely to experience physical violence from that. So I urge you to just keep these things in mind with this bill and really consider who you'll be hurting. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Come on up, and we're waiting on her. Nikki Metzger?
Yeah.
I have you representing yourself, testifying against the bill.
Yes. My name is Nikki Metzger. I'm a constituent of Sarah Davis in Houston, and I'm here today because I oppose HB 16. I was born and raised in Houston and have been a proud Texan my entire life. I went to college here at Rice, contribute to the economy and the community as all women have and do every day. That's why I'm so disappointed in this legislation, which assumes that politicians know women better than they know themselves and diminishes their ability to control their own bodies. Women in Texas own small businesses, they own homes, they teach in our classrooms, cure sick in our hospitals, run for office, and a million other things every day that shows that they are capable of making their own complex decisions about when and if they have children. This dangerous legislation makes those decisions for them, and it underestimates them. Today I drove 3 hours from Houston to be here simply to say this. I have a job that is flexible, money for gas, and a place to stay. Many women cannot say the same. They have been forgotten by this bill, and all women are diminished by this bill. This bill treats women like we're nothing, and you stopping the rest of us from testifying also treats us like we're nothing. As the saying goes, Texas is heaven for men and dogs, but it's hell for women and horses, and I look forward to a future when that is no longer true. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.